It was a moonless night in the vast expanse of the New Mexican wilderness. A group of 10 campers, my husband and his family, had pitched their tents near a tranquil lake, seeking solace from the hustle and bustle of city life. As the campfire crackled and laughter filled the air, the tranquility of the night was shattered by a chilling sound, the cries of a little girl pleading for help. The campers froze, their hearts pounding in unison. There were no children among them, and the eerie cries seemed to emanate from the depths of the surrounding forest. A sense of dread crept in, casting a pall over the once joyous atmosphere. Driven by a mix of concern and curiosity, a few of the braver campers ventured into the darkness, their flashlights cutting through the dense foliage. They followed the cries, their footsteps echoing in the stillness of the night. Suddenly, in the distance, they spotted a figure amidst the trees. It was tall, slender, and enveloped in an ethereal white glow. The figure turned towards them, revealing a haunting sight, a pale, featureless face with eyes that seemed to pierce the very soul. A gasp escaped the campers' lips as they stumbled back, their flashlights trembling in their hands. The figure remained motionless, its piercing gaze fixed on them. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the faint cries of the little girl. Undeterred by fear, the campers pressed on, their flashlights' beams illuminating the path ahead. The figure retreated deeper into the woods, its white glow fading into the darkness. As the campers searched, the cries of the little girl grew louder, more desperate. They followed the sound, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and determination. The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees looming like silent sentinels. The air grew colder, and a sense of unease settled over them. Suddenly, the cries stopped. The campers paused, their flashlights scanning the darkness. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant hooting of an owl. They stood there, their hearts pounding in their chests, unsure of what to do next. The eerie silence was almost as unsettling as the cries of the little girl. As they turned to leave, a faint glow caught their eye. It was the figure, standing at the edge of the forest, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly intensity. The campers watched in horror as the figure raised its arm and pointed towards the lake. The water shimmered in the moonlight, its surface undisturbed. The figure then vanished, leaving the campers alone in the darkness. They exchanged nervous glances, their minds racing with questions. What was the figure? Was it a ghost, a spirit, or something else entirely? And what did it want with them? The campers returned to their campsites, their hearts heavy with dread. The night had taken a sinister turn, and the cries of the little girl continued to haunt their thoughts. Sleep evaded them that night. The image of the white figure was burned into their minds, its piercing gaze echoing in their ears. The cries of the little girl seemed to follow them, a constant reminder of the unsettling encounter. As dawn broke, the campers packed up their belongings and left the campsite, their hearts filled with a mix of relief and fear. They had no explanation for what they had experienced, but they knew they would never forget the night they heard the cries of the little girl. In 2013, during my junior college years, I was part of our college organization's annual art camp. As fine arts students, this camp was a chance to learn from our professors and mentors while engaging in team-building activities. The venue was a sprawling recreational area in a rural setting near Laguna, Philippines. As the camp's officers, we were responsible for selecting the venue, planning the games and itineraries, and ensuring everything ran smoothly. The venue itself was quite unique, with a hanging bridge leading to a campfire area, a pool, and obstacle courses. A large open space function hall served as the hub for seminars, while our cabins were tucked away behind the hall. The mentors and professors occupied the first cabin, followed by the girls' cabin, the sophomores' and freshmen's cabin, and finally, the boys' cabin. Beyond the function hall, there was an outdoor lounge area with a life-size chessboard, an obstacle course, a pool, and a foresty area with camping grounds. One evening, around 8 p.m., after the seminar and dinner, some students were relaxing in their cabins, while others were strolling around the venue. As the officers, we were busy planning the next day's activities. Meanwhile, 5 of the guys, Wally, Kev, Alan, Hero, and Gab, were hanging out in their cabin. Gab, noticing Frank, a freshman, dozing off on the top bunk, asked if he wanted to join them for some chess. Frank, tired from the day's activities, declined and turned over to sleep. Before leaving, Gab asked Frank if he could borrow his slippers since he hadn't brought any. Frank agreed, and the 5 guys headed out. As they approached the chessboard area, Gab noticed someone walking parallel to them. The figure was heading towards a large old coconut tree. Confused, Gab stopped walking, and the others followed suit. It was dark, with minimal lighting, making it difficult to see clearly. Gab rubbed his eyes and realized the walking figure was none other than Frank. They all called out to Frank, but he didn't respond. Hero noticed that Frank had stopped walking and turned towards them, but his expression was blank and devoid of any emotion. Alan, confused, asked if it was really Frank. Gab, realizing something was off, confronted the others. How could it be Frank when he was wearing his only slippers? They all looked at Frank, who continued walking wordlessly until he suddenly vanished behind the old coconut tree. The 5 guys gasped in unison and ran back to their cabin as fast as they could. Breathless and terrified, they burst through the door, only to find Frank sleeping soundly, headphones plugged in. Shaken by the encounter, they woke Frank up and asked him if he had gone outside. Frank, rubbing his eyes, groggily replied no. The 5 guys were so scared that they rushed to our cabin to tell us what happened. I was the only one awake at the time, and their story sent shivers down my spine. I had already experienced strange occurrences during the night, hearing giggling and seeing silhouettes passing by the screen doors. I tried to rationalize it as students still up and about, but I couldn't shake off the eerie feeling. Many other students had similar experiences, and the general consensus was that the place was haunted. The vibes were unsettling, and the stories of paranormal encounters only added to the atmosphere. The art camp in Laguna will forever be etched in our memories, not just for the artistic pursuits, but also for the chilling encounters with the unexplained. The place's mystique and the stories surrounding it have become an integral part of our college organization's folklore. My friend, a 25-year-old woman from Buffalo, New York, shared a harrowing experience that happened to her and her friends during their senior year of high school. They were avid campers, often venturing into local upstate campgrounds. One weekend, the group of 5 girls decided to stay at a campsite with rows of cabins nestled along the water's edge. As the sun began to set, they noticed their neighbors, a group of guys around their age, enjoying themselves by a campfire, music playing and beers in hand. One of the guys, seemingly friendly and outgoing, invited them to join the party. The girls, eager for some social interaction, agreed. They spent the next few hours chatting, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. However, as the night wore on, the mood shifted. One of the guys, who had been consuming an excessive amount of alcohol, became increasingly erratic. He pulled out a revolver, claiming it belonged to his father, and started waving it around playfully. The girls, along with the guy's own friends, became alarmed by his behavior. They pleaded with him to put the gun away, warning him of the danger he posed. The guy, however, seemed oblivious to their concerns, continuing to act recklessly. Shaken and uneasy, the girls decided to call it a night and return to their cabin. They couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling that had settled over them. In the middle of the night, a loud gunshot shattered the silence. The girls' hearts pounded as they peered out their cabin window, their eyes darting towards the neighboring cabin. Shortly after, a swarm of police cars descended upon the campsite. An officer approached the girls' cabin, inquiring about their earlier interaction with the group of guys. When asked about the gunshot, the officer revealed a tragic turn of events. The intoxicated guy had shot himself in the head. The motive remained unclear, whether it was an accident or an intentional act. To this day, my friend carries the emotional scars of that night. The incident triggered PTSD, and she has developed a deep aversion to camping. The memory of the reckless behavior, the gunshot's deafening echo, and the tragic outcome continue to haunt her. The sweltering heat and humidity hung heavy in the air as we pitched our tents, eager to escape the city's stifling embrace. We had chosen a secluded campsite nestled amidst towering pines, anticipating a tranquil camping experience. However, nature had other plans. 3 evenings in a row, the sky erupted in a spectacular display of purple lightning, illuminating the forest with an otherworldly glow. The sight was breathtaking, a mesmerizing dance of light against the velvety backdrop of the night sky. On the second night, as the storm raged overhead, my daughter and I ventured out of our tent, drawn by the captivating spectacle. We sat mesmerized, watching the lightning streaks pierce the darkness, their vibrant purple hues painting the canvas of the sky. Suddenly, a thick mist-like mass materialized between our campsite and our neighbor's caravan. The eerie apparition, resembling a swirling mass of tadpoles, drifted silently through the air, casting an unsettling shadow under the dim glow of our campsite lights. I rubbed my eyes, questioning whether my vision was playing tricks on me. My daughter, however, had witnessed the same phenomenon. Her eyes widened with fear as she described the swirling mist, its uncanny resemblance to tadpoles confirming what I had seen. We watched in a mixture of awe and apprehension as the mist drifted towards the trees, eventually disappearing into the dense foliage. The air crackled with the energy of the storm, and the eerie silence that followed was broken only by the distant rumble of thunder. Despite the unsettling encounter, we spent the rest of our camping trip without any further paranormal occurrences. The mist remained an enigma, a fleeting glimpse into the mysteries that lurk within the depths of the natural world. The question of what exactly the mist was remains unanswered, a lingering mystery that adds to the allure of our camping adventure. Perhaps it was a rare atmospheric phenomenon, a wisp of fog caught in the storm's vortex. Or perhaps it was something more ethereal, a manifestation of nature's unseen forces. Whatever its origin, the mist left an indelible mark on our memories, a reminder of the unexpected wonders that nature holds in store. The camping trip may have been uneventful on the strangeness scale since then, but the encounter with the black mist remains a testament to the allure and mystery of the natural world. The year was 2019, and my boyfriend and I were eager to explore the Walking on Ancient Mountains trail in Nopaming Provincial Park. We had heard it was a short but challenging hike that offered breathtaking views of the surrounding lakes and forests. As we ventured deeper into the park, the signal on our phones began to fade. The last campsite we passed was about 22 kilometers behind us, leaving us feeling quite isolated. Around 1 a.m., we arrived at the trailhead and decided to get some rest before our morning hike. We parked our SUV at the base of the trail and honked the horn repeatedly to scare away any potential wildlife. After using the nearby outhouse, we hopped back into the truck, locked the doors, and settled into our makeshift bed in the back seat. Just as we were drifting off to sleep, we heard heavy footsteps approaching the vehicle. The footsteps were distinct, step, drag, echoing through the stillness of the night. Fear gripped us, and we remained motionless for what seemed like an eternity. The footsteps grew closer, circling the truck before abruptly stopping. In a moment of panic, I scrambled out of the front seat, started the car, and frantically shone my headlights around, but there was nothing in sight. I quickly scanned the surrounding bushes with my high beams, but the area was deserted. Despite the lack of visible evidence, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was lurking nearby. I stayed awake for nearly an hour, my heart pounding in my chest, constantly scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. As the first rays of dawn began to penetrate the darkness, the footsteps resumed, this time much closer. They circled the truck, moving from the rear driver's side wheel well, where my head lay, to the wheel well next to my boyfriend's head. We watched in terror through the windows, too scared to move. Suddenly, a loud, slow scratching sound echoed from the wheel well next to my boyfriend. He instinctively pounded on the car wall to scare off the unseen creature, but the scratching persisted. Despite the escalating fear, we remained in the truck, unable to fathom what was happening. The footsteps and scratching continued for most of the night, gradually fading as the first rays of sunlight illuminated the area. When it was finally light enough to see clearly, we emerged from the truck, our nerves still on edge. Upon closer inspection, we discovered that the tire next to where the scratching had occurred was completely flat. We had no explanation for the flattened tire or the eerie sounds we had experienced throughout the night. We were baffled and unsettled, wondering if we had encountered something beyond our understanding. To this day, we remain haunted by our experience at walking on ancient mountains. The heavy footsteps, the dragging sound, and the inexplicable flat tire continue to puzzle us. We have never heard of anyone else having similar experiences in the Manitoba wilderness, but we can't shake the feeling that we encountered something out of the ordinary. Nestled amidst the vast expanse of Norway's wilderness lies a sprawling lake, its tranquil waters beckoning adventurers seeking solace in nature's embrace. My friend and I, drawn by the allure of the pristine wilderness, embarked on a camping trip, eager to immerse ourselves in the raw beauty of our homeland. Our journey led us up the river, where we set our sights on an island nestled in the heart of the lake. The island, bearing the marks of previous campers, offered an ideal spot for our campsite. However, an unsettling sight greeted us, a monstrous northern pike head, its vacant eyes fixed upon us from its perch on a nearby tree. As darkness descended, we gathered around the crackling campfire, the flames casting dancing shadows that played tricks on our minds. The air was heavy with the scent of pine and the soothing sounds of the night. Despite the comforting darkness, an eerie sensation lingered, a feeling that we were not alone. Around 2 a.m., the tranquility of the night was shattered by a chilling sight. A solitary figure emerged from the depths of the lake, standing atop a makeshift raft. The figure, shrouded in darkness, was pale and indistinct, its features barely discernible. Fear gripped our hearts as we watched the enigmatic figure stand motionless, its gaze fixed upon our campsite. The stillness of the night was punctuated by bursts of laughter, an unsettling sound that echoed across the water. Overcome with a sense of dread, we remained huddled in our tents, our silence broken only by the pounding of our hearts. The laughter intensified, sending shivers down our spines. The figure, seemingly oblivious to our fear, continued its haunting vigil. As exhaustion eventually lulled us into a restless sleep, the nightmare continued. The pike head, its eyes glowing with an eerie luminescence, taunted me in my dreams. The sky transformed into a kaleidoscope of colors, and the figure on the raft appeared larger, its laughter echoing louder. Awakening with a start, I found myself bathed in the early morning light. My friend, already awake, glanced at me with a knowing look. When I inquired about the noises of the night, he shook his head, claiming to have slept soundly. My disbelief was short-lived when I laid eyes upon the lake once more. The figure, now clearly visible, stood steadfast on the raft, its gaze piercing our souls. The distance between us was vast, yet the intensity of its stare was palpable. A wave of fear washed over us, and we hastily packed our belongings, abandoning our campsite with a sense of urgency. The roar of the motorboat engine provided a comforting escape as we sped away, leaving the enigmatic figure behind. The image of the figure, its pale face and haunting laughter, remains etched in our minds. The questions linger: who was the figure? What were its intentions? And why was it drawn to our campsite? Despite the unsettling encounter, the beauty of the lake and the surrounding wilderness remains untarnished. Yet, the memory of the raft man serves as a reminder of the unexpected encounters that can await those who venture into the depths of nature. The year was 2014, and my girlfriend and I were seeking an escape from the bustling city life of Sacramento. On a whim, we decided to embark on a camping trip, venturing into the heart of Northern California's wilderness. After a 4 to 5 hour drive north along Interstate 5, we found ourselves amidst rolling hills and winding roads that grew increasingly rugged with each passing mile. As dusk approached, we stumbled upon a secluded spot nestled deep within the hills, far from the sight and sound of civilization. With eager hands, we set up our tent, our anticipation mounting as we prepared for a night under the stars. We gathered around a crackling campfire, the flames casting dancing shadows upon our faces as we shared stories and laughter. As the night deepened, exhaustion beckoned, and we retreated to the warmth of our tent. We zipped up the entrance, securing ourselves within the confines of our temporary shelter, unaware of the strange events that awaited us. In the stillness of the night, my girlfriend awoke, her voice a hushed whisper in the darkness. She needed to find a place to relieve herself, but something was amiss. The zipper on the tent had vanished. I reached out, my finger searching for the familiar ridges of the zipper, but there was nothing but smooth fabric beneath my touch. With a flashlight in hand, we illuminated the tent's interior, revealing a perplexing sight. The zipper was indeed gone. More baffling still, we discovered that we had been sleeping on top of the tent door, our belongings miraculously undisturbed by our nocturnal movements. The door, once firmly zipped in place, now lay rolled up beside us. Bewildered and unnerved, we emerged from the tent, our hearts pounding in our chests. The campfire, once a beacon of warmth and comfort, now seemed ominous in the darkness. To our disbelief, we found ourselves standing mere feet from the fire pit, a distance of at least 25 yards from where we had originally set up camp. We had no recollection of rolling the tent, nor could we fathom how our belongings had remained in their place during such a remarkable displacement. The rest of the night was spent in a state of heightened vigilance, our eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of the inexplicable force that had moved us. As dawn broke, we hastily packed our belongings, eager to escape the unsettling aura that lingered around our campsite. To this day, I remain haunted by the events of that night. The inexplicable disappearance of the zipper, the effortless relocation of our tent, and the unexplained proximity to the fire pit have left me with an enduring sense of mystery. While I have entertained various theories, from paranormal occurrences to extraterrestrial encounters, none can fully explain the surreal events that transpired. The camping trip of 2014 remains etched in my memory as the most perplexing and unsettling experience of my life. The year was 1992, and 4 friends, fresh out of high school, embarked on a camping trip to the remote canyons of Utah, bordering Colorado. The vast expanse of desert stretched before them, a stark contrast to the bustling city life they had just left behind. As dusk settled, casting long shadows across the rugged terrain, the friends gathered around a crackling campfire, the warmth of the flames offering solace against the encroaching darkness. The air was alive with the haunting calls of coyotes, their eerie cries echoing through the canyons. Suddenly, the coyotes fell silent, their chorus abruptly cut off. An unsettling quiet descended upon the campsite, a palpable tension hanging in the air. One of the friends exchanged a nervous glance with his companions, their hearts pounding in unison. Moments later, as if a switch had been flipped, the darkness intensified, enveloping them in an impenetrable blackness. The campfire, once a beacon of light, flickered and died, leaving them in an inky void. Time seemed to stretch and distort, each second dragging like an eternity. The friends remained motionless, their breaths catching in their throats, their minds struggling to comprehend the sudden shift in their surroundings. Then, a voice broke the silence, asking, "What just happened?" The sound seemed to emanate from within the group, yet no one could claim it as their own. The friend who had spoken earlier, the one who had noticed the coyote's silence, fumbled for his flashlight, his hands trembling uncontrollably. As the beam of light cut through the darkness, they were met with an unsettling sight. The campfire, which had been roaring just moments before, was now reduced to a pile of cold ashes. The flames had vanished without a trace, as if snuffed out by an unseen hand. A sense of dread crept over the friends, their minds racing with unanswered questions. Had they lost time? Had something intervened during their blackout, something they couldn't remember? The rest of the night was spent in a state of heightened vigilance, their eyes darting nervously towards every shadow, every sound. They longed for the sun to rise, to escape the clutches of the oppressive darkness. As dawn finally broke, they packed up their belongings in a hurried silence, their desire to leave the campsite overriding their curiosity about the mysterious events of the night. To this day, the friends remain unable to explain what happened. They were not drunk, nor were they under the influence of any other substances. The missing time, the unexplained darkness, and the extinguished campfire remain a haunting enigma, a testament to the inexplicable forces that can lurk within the depths of nature. The question of whether something similar has happened to others remains unanswered, a mystery that adds to the allure and mystique of the natural world. The vast expanse of wilderness, with its hidden secrets and unexplained phenomena, continues to captivate and intrigue those who dare to venture into its depths. In the summer of 2019, my brother, best friend, and I embarked on an ambitious cross-country cycling trip to raise funds for a cancer charity. Our journey took us through the heartland of America, where we often found ourselves camping in town parks and campgrounds. One evening, as we rolled into Napoleon, North Dakota, a town so small it seemed to exist outside of time, we found ourselves in the town's only park, seeking refuge under a pavilion for the night. As darkness descended, a faint radio static began to fill the air, a ghostly whisper of distant stations shifting and fading. The sound grew louder, gradually morphing into a cacophony of commercials and song fragments. Weary from our 70-mile day and facing another 60 miles tomorrow, my patience wore thin. Determined to silence the intrusive noise, I emerged from the pavilion, only to be met by an eerie emptiness. The campsite and the entire town were deserted, as if time had stopped. I checked my phone, and to my astonishment, it read 1:30 a.m. I couldn't recall falling asleep, as we had just returned from dinner at 8:30 p.m. Intrigued and slightly unnerved, I decided to follow the source of the static. It led me to the town's water tower, then down Main Street, and finally towards a vast cornfield at the edge of town. The sound seemed to shift with the wind, coming from different directions, leaving me with an unsettling feeling. As I hesitated on the edge of the cornfield, the static abruptly intensified, now emanating from within my own head. I frantically jammed earbuds into my ears, but the sound only grew louder, a relentless buzz that rattled my brain. After a restless night battling the internal static, I awoke to the relentless downpour, ready to tackle the day's 60-mile ride. The buzzing in my head had finally subsided, leaving behind an uneasy silence. Later that day, I received the heartbreaking news of my beloved childhood dog's passing, plunging me into the depths of grief. While seemingly unrelated to the previous night's events, the coincidence added an unsettling layer to my already unsettling experience. The haunting radio static and the inexplicable buzzing in my head remain unexplained, a chilling reminder of the unexplained mysteries that can lurk in the quiet corners of the world. My boyfriend, Austin, and I embarked on a weekend camping trip to Mount Rainier National Forest, seeking solace in the heart of nature. As a surprise for his upcoming birthday, I had planned to camp at the renowned Cougar Rock campground. However, upon arrival, we were disappointed to discover every campsite occupied. Undeterred, I drew upon my years of camping experience with my family and suggested we venture into the uncharted territories of the national forest. We drove deep into the woods, passing numerous campers who had similarly been turned away from the official campgrounds. As dusk approached, we stumbled upon a secluded spot marked by 2 wooden sticks planted in the ground, resembling an ominous X. Despite the unsettling symbol, we decided to set up camp, relying on the seclusion and tranquility of the surroundings. As we settled into the back of our rented U-Haul, a sense of unease crept over us. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional rustling of leaves. The darkness was impenetrable, swallowing any light from our flashlights. Suddenly, we were jolted awake by a chilling sound, a haunting mix of a vibrating growl, a phone buzz, and footsteps approaching from the driver's side of the truck. Fear gripped our hearts as we remained motionless, our eyes wide with terror. The sound circled the truck, growing louder and more menacing. Austin whispered to me, suggesting it might be an animal. However, the sound was unlike anything we had ever heard in the wilderness, sending shivers down our spines. Grabbing a knife, Austin instructed me to follow him as he jumped out of the U-Haul from the passenger side. We would circle the truck, attempting to identify the source of the unsettling sound. As we cautiously moved through the darkness, the sound intensified, sending a wave of primal fear through us. The oppressive atmosphere and the feeling of being watched amplified our terror. We hastily retreated to the truck, our hearts pounding in our chests. Austin suggested we relocate to a different campsite, convinced that something sinister was lurking in the woods. We drove deeper into the forest, our minds racing with the inexplicable events that had transpired. The silence was now punctuated by a strange humming sound, rising and falling in pitch, echoing from behind the truck. The humming intensified, emanating from the direction of the driver's side, seemingly taunting us. Austin, despite his earlier attempts to rationalize the sounds, was now visibly shaken. Overwhelmed by fear, I reached for my phone, hoping to dial 911. However, the lack of cellular service rendered us helpless, trapped in the heart of the forest with an unseen entity. The humming abruptly ceased, replaced by an eerie stillness. Austin suggested we make a hasty retreat, abandoning our plans for camping. As we sped away, I noticed 2 more wooden sticks planted in the shape of an X marking the spot we had just left behind. The chilling realization dawned upon us that the unseen presence had been toying with us, leaving these ominous markers as a haunting reminder of their existence. We returned to town, seeking refuge in a motel parking lot, shaken by the terrifying encounter. The sounds we had heard and the unsettling symbols we had encountered left an indelible mark on our minds. To this day, we remain haunted by the events of that night. The unexplained sounds, the oppressive darkness, and the eerie X markings serve as a constant reminder of the enigmatic forces that lurk within the depths of nature.